Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Blair Embry, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Prison Yoga Project. And we are so excited today to have Hare on as our guest. And let me introduce him to you. Hare, originally from Oklahoma, has been tattooing for over 10 years. As a former graffiti artist turned Buddhist, Eric specializes in sacred geometry work, including custom mandalas in geometric tattoos. Eric enjoys working with his clients to bring their artistic visions to life and helping people heal their trauma through the power of art and unapologetic self-expression. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric.
No problem.
So for all of our community members, I'll go over the framework a little bit for our webinars. So we do our introductions and we've kind of warmed up the room to welcome our guest. And then I'm going to lead us today in a centering opportunity. This is an invitation. As always, you're welcome to join us. You don't have to. So this is an opportunity for us to all co-regulate, right? Even though we're joining virtually, there really is a difference when we all take an opportunity to kind of get on the same page and cultivate presence. So I'll lead us in a little centering opportunity, and then Eric and I will have a conversation for probably about 30-40 minutes. We do have a hard stop today at 10:30, so we'll probably stop conversations and Q&A around 10:20. I want to honor Eric's time today. We'll have a conversation and then we're going to open up to the community for question and answer. And so down on the Zoom bar, there's a little black box and it says Q&A. And so you can put any questions you have into the Q&A and then I'll read them out loud and Eric will engage in some dialogue with our community as well. So yeah, that's kind of how our morning is going to go. So everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I think with that, we can get started with a little centering opportunity. So again, you are welcome to join us. You don't have to. Maybe if we're seated, let's find a tall seat. And I was kind of thinking of a theme today. Eric is an artist that draws on the skin. So I thought that might be a good entry point today for our centering opportunity. So as we're finding a tall seated position, and maybe we're standing as well, you're welcome to keep your eyes open or they're welcome to close. But as we start to sink in, maybe start to bring attention or awareness to our breath, see if there's a part of our skin that's a little bit more awake or alive today. So we'll give a couple moments to find maybe a spot. And if there's not a spot, you can make it up. And this awareness on our skin is going to be our entry point today. So I want to invite growth of this awareness on our skin. And the invitation is with every breath that this awareness grows bigger. So we're going to sit with our own breath while this awareness grows bigger until it actually expands throughout our whole body. So again, we're taking this piece or a part of awareness that we feel on our skin and allowing that awareness to grow until it encapsulates our whole body. If at any point in time it feels uncomfortable, you're welcome to stop. Continue to allow the sensation of awareness to spread throughout your whole body. And let's seal this practice in with 3 breaths on our own time. You can start to welcome yourself back into the room. I have a direct sun on my face, so I'm close my curtain. It's a little better.
Did you mean for that to happen?
It's so interesting from like this spot in my little office area. The sun changes with seasons, and so it's an interesting way to like watch the passage of time, to have the sun be in different places in each season when you're in the same spot. So right now it seems at 9 o'clock it's directly in my face.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, coming out of that little moment, it was funny just seeing like a glowing a glowing blare. I was like, whoa.
An orb.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all,
So oftentimes we start this conversation by asking our guest, what is your first memory of yoga?
mine.
Yeah.
I honestly think the first the first time was in prison.
Yeah.
And I was in reception, and it was mentioned in the little like bio thing. But yeah, someone had handed me a book, which is pretty strange that it was the Prison Yoga Project, and now I'm on their little, I've like met with you and Bill and stuff. But yeah, I was trying yoga from a book, which I didn't know what I was doing, but it seemed like it was, it was beneficial. Maybe that, yeah, I don't know. It's it was odd. Yeah, being in a prison and trying to do yoga in a cell alone, very conflicting, because prison wasn't really an environment where that's I don't know, agreed with, or the yeah, it was interesting, and it took me a lot of years to develop a practice. And yeah, that's my first memory.
So your first memory or like introduction to yoga was when someone gave you the book, and
Yeah,
I'll drop the link to the book as well. So we wrote about it a little bit in the description of the event, but basically, um, someone was leaving the prison, and they're like, "Hey, you want this book?" And that's how you got the book. Is that
yeah,
how it goes?
yeah. It was strange. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I'll check it out. I mean, because where I was, it was in reception, so there's not really a lot of reading material,
Mm,
and just you're kind of open to any kind of book that comes your way. It's like you'll read a Western, you'll read, anything that you can read. It's like I just need something to get my mind off of what I'm going through.
mm.
And yeah, that book, I never thought I did, obviously I wasn't aware of the impact it would have, but it yeah, opened my eyes to a lot of not only just yoga, but it was also like spiritual teachings that I wasn't really aware of. So yeah, breath work, pranayama, um, different terms. I was raised in the Midwest, so I was kind of, I think, part of like the Christian um, ideology, and so yeah, opening opening my eyes to something different was it it was interesting, so yeah.
Yeah, so those first couple of weeks, maybe like when you had that book, what did you start with? Did you start with like a physical practice, or
I think
yeah.
I had started with the breath. I think there were some pranayama exercises that I had practiced and stuff like that. I'm not. I honestly, it was. I think what it was probably like 6, 7 years ago now. Um, that when the book, yeah, it was like 20. Had to have been 2015, sometime that year. Yeah, maybe the end of, yeah. It's probably like November 2015. So it's like, it's kind of like the memory's a little, not as clear, but I think it was the breathing exercises because I had already familiar with like meditation and stuff like that. So that was like probably where I started. And I do remember doing some of the yoga poses and stuff, but not knowing what I was doing. Like I had no idea. Obviously, like, I mean, I didn't have an example. I had pictures, I had like drawings, and I just thought, okay, well, and it's hard. It's like you're trying to read a book and practice yoga at the same time. So you're like, okay, do this, okay, breathe in, do this, breathe out. And you're like, obviously you're not doing, I was not doing it right. Like I wasn't doing it correctly. There's no way.
Well, and yeah, and I can imagine that's hard. You're like, okay, like so you're gonna prop your book open, and then like, are you always going back and forth? Are you like reading,
That's
right?
kind of what you have to, I mean, you have to like read it and then try it. And then you're like, wait, I missed a step. Okay, let me go back. And you're like, so it's an interesting way of learning, because especially nowadays, everyone, you know, like out here in the free world, it's like, I want to learn how to do yoga. If I don't have like a studio to go to, I can get on YouTube. I can watch someone do it. I didn't have that. So it was like, yeah, it was very difficult, but I had fun. It occupied my mind. It occupied, what I was going through at that time, which is a very difficult, time in my life. So
Well, I also hear that like learning in that way also creates more discipline, even, or like more commitment, right? Like you had to be even more committed to learn it because there's almost that barrier that you don't have a teacher.
yeah.
So what made you want to keep practicing?
Um, I mean, I think it was just something that I know it sounds silly, but it was like my soul was needing something, like some sort of change. And I could feel that is, the spiritual practice was something that I like needed. It's simple. I mean, it's pretty simple. Yeah, that's like I think I'm trying to think of the last time I actually did yoga, like physical, like hatha yoga. It's probably been a few months, but when I mean, I'm not as, like I'm not just some like spiritual guru or anything, or like I have it all together. I obviously have moments, but like when I'm feeling anxious or I'm, angry or whatever, it's like I can take stuff that I learned from, you know, that book and other books. I mean, I've read a lot of books in prison and stuff like that. And yeah, it's, it helps to be able to focus on your breath and just go, okay, wait a second. I just need to stop and just reconnect with me because obviously I'm drifting.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think like that's I would want to be careful with how I say this, right? Because like I don't that's the point of yoga, I think. Like our physical practice on our mat is so that that spaciousness can be applied to moments where we need the spaciousness, like when we're angry or triggered or upset, right? It's like that is practicing yoga. That's living yoga. And I don't think it's corny at all that, that it's what your soul needed at that time, and that's why you kept practicing, right? And it's
And I practiced for many, many years. I mean, the whole time I was in prison, I did yoga up until, I even did, obviously I did it when I got out, but um, you- every, and I was really, really disciplined. I would do yoga for, obviously, even the prison yoga project. I was a volunteer for the group that came in, um, which is, it's crazy how it all, like, everything all worked out. But yeah, I practice it regularly, probably 7 days a week for many, many years. But
which is amazing, and I think probably even more than a lot of people in our community practice.
yeah, but see, that's the difference. Like when you're in prison, you don't really have a lot of things to do. It was like I had art, I had running, I had yoga, and I had myself, like, and then obviously books and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I felt like I made so many like advances just in my spirituality in those years because of like being able to just do it every day and like, okay, what are we going to do today? Okay, I get to eat, I get to do yoga. Like, you're on lockdown for months. And so you're like, yeah, I have nothing to do. So I will do art for 5 hours and then I'll do yoga for an hour and then I'll exercise for an hour and then I'll take a nap, or I'll read a book or watch some TV. You're really limited. So I think that's probably what's happened out here with me. It's like I became so busy that it's really, really difficult to like stop and like, you know, work on self-care as easy as it was in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see how successful your work is, right? So I think that's probably part of your busyness, but like yeah, what's the motivation for your busyness?
I guess the desire to succeed, to be a success story, to not, which I have, I'm very proud of myself, but um, yeah, I think I just want to be successful, because a lot of people don't have the opportunities that I've had, like being released from prison. And so it's like, I can't, there's a lot of people rooting for me. And so it's like, I gotta continue to push, I have to, yeah, it's not easy. There are days where I, you know, feel like I'm not doing my best, but I definitely push to be better. Yeah, that it's yeah. I
Can
think
we
yeah.
I think your success and your hard work clearly has really benefited you and your family in so many ways, right? Like, so you've been out for a year now. You just
Mhm.
like most recently like celebrated your 1 year out, which is
Yeah,
so much to celebrate. And then can we share your news that you shared with me the other day too? Is that out?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You can.
yeah. So actually, we have a
Yeah, I
fun.
think
So
it's.
yeah.
I haven't officially announced it, but
Do you want to tell our audience?
you can.
Okay, I will. So Eric just got recruited actually to Guru Tattoo, and if you're on Instagram, you can look to see just elite tattoo artists are part of this community and this shop. And Eric was asked to join them, so you'll be able to see or meet him there very soon, starting in July. And so also we can send a link. What's your Instagram handle? Because I want people to see your art.
Mine.
Yeah,
Eric Hare tattoo.
Eric Hare
It's pretty
tattoo.
easy.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in here.
Yeah, Hare.
So pulling in kind of this practice of art and spirituality. When did you start drawing mandalas?
In prison. Yeah. I started before. I think it was maybe a couple months before I went to prison, actually, out here, but not like I had been interested in them. There was like a shift going on within, and I think sacred geometry wasn't really as popular as it is today. There were only like a few tattoo artists doing sacred geometry, and I was interested in it. Obviously, I'm into patterns and abstract and something different. I don't know. But yeah, I think I tattooed maybe three mandalas before, in 2014, before I went to jail. And then when I went in, it was a way for me to occupy, my mind. And it takes a lot of time to draw mandalas with pen and pencil and paint. And so, yeah, it would occupy many, many hours. And yeah, I was doing humongous mandalas, big, like 20 by 20 with pen, probably 80 to 100, 200 hours on each, on each one, depending on the size. But
Were you able to take those with you when you left?
um, I actually, there was a guy, one of my friends in there, he bought a lot of my artwork, but I would send them out too. I sent stuff to Cornell. I sent stuff to just anybody who was writing me, the people like friends and family and stuff like that. But I think one of my friends, Bobby, who I met inside, he really encouraged it. He was like, "Oh wow, that's awesome! I want that. I'm gonna buy that right now. How much?" And I'd be like, $100. And he'd be like, he'd pull out money and like, because in prison, like the place I was at, we had little like paper, kind of like paper money called ducats, and he would just pull them out and be like, "That's mine. I want that." I'm like, "It's not even done yet." He's like, "I want that." And then he would like give me shit whenever I wasn't working on it. He'd be like, "How's my painting coming? How's my drawing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I haven't worked on it." "Why haven't you worked on it today?" I'm like, "Dude, leave me alone." But yeah, I did a lot of mandalas. And the funny thing is that like, I didn't know I was going to be tattooing. I thought that I was not going to tattoo, which is odd because I just thought, I want to stay out of that. Anything the old Eric had, I want to like stay away from. And now I'm a successful tattoo artist, which is weird, but
Yeah, very successful, like very wanted. I see when you post a story, you're like, "Hey, I have an opening," and literally within less than 20 minutes, you're booked.
yeah, usually
Yeah,
it's weird.
it's incredible. So what made you choose to tattoo when you got out?
I mean, I think it's weird. It's like things all kind of fall into place in a way that they should. Um, I had a friend. She's my friend now. She wasn't like a friend in there, but her name was Dr. Shaw. She was a professor at Cal Poly, and she, I don't know, she had. I kept in contact with her when I got out. She had hosted an exhibition for prison artists. That's how I met her. I submitted some work. It was obviously in my early stages. I look back at it and I'm like, it looked like it's crap. But um, yeah, she had seen some of my art and like showed interest. I'd started teaching an art class. She had came in to watch the class. It's kind of like the backstory, whatever. But when I got out, I was still in contact with her. I met up with her. We had lunch. We talked. She had asked me like, "Hey, are you gonna tattoo?" And I'm like, I actually hadn't considered it. I was gonna go to SDSU. I had this thing like where I wanted to do art therapy. I wanted to be of service. And then it's weird how that conversation had shifted my mind just like that. It's weird. I was like enrolled to SDSU. I was going to school in the fall. I was like, everything was in place, like everything. It's just weird. And then she's like, "Hey, are you going to tattoo? Because if so, I want you to do my tattoo." And I'm like, boom. It just hit something. And it like, I was like, I hadn't thought about it. Like, I really hadn't. Because for so many years, I hadn't tattooed. It was like, no, I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do this. I had these goals and plans. And just like that, it was weird. It's weird how things like that happen. And so, yeah, I'd reached out. The first tattoo shop I reached out to, the tattoo shop that I'm at right now, Axiom, they responded to my message and they hired me. It was like, it just happened like that. It was just like, was like, oh yeah, okay. One day I just woke up and just messaged them. They responded. And what's crazy is I messaged them for, like, obviously they didn't respond right away. I would say it was probably within the hour, but within that hour, I had messaged them. I'd messaged some other tattoo shops, probably like 10 shops in San Diego. They respond. It just kind of like snowballed. And over the next couple of days, every tattoo shop that I had messaged, no, sorry, you're not really what we're looking for. Because I had told them my story. I'm like, hey, I just got out of prison. I'm trying to change. This is my art. I haven't tattooed in a long time. They're like, no, but yeah, Axiom actually was like, what? You just got out of prison? We love that. Like, come work for us. So yeah, it was awesome.
Which is amazing, right? And so I feel like with this Shaw, just like it was like this seed that was like maybe already there that just kind of like opened,
Yeah.
and then everything fell into place. So
Well, the thing was, is like the whole time I was in jail, I was focusing on my art. I was like really dedicated. I would wake up in the morning, we eat breakfast at like 6. I'd come back into my cell, and for many, many months, years, I mean, honestly, or when I was in a dorm, I would draw all day. So I would draw from like 8 in the morning to like 5. And then, obviously there were some like breaks because I'd go out to the yard and hang out with people and stuff, but especially on lockdowns, on lockdowns, I would draw all day. I mean, it would be, yeah, 8, 9 hours into the night sometimes. Sometimes if I wouldn't draw all day, then I would go into my cell at lockdown, lockdown or whatever. And I would draw from like 8 at night to like 2, 3 in the morning,
just like
but yeah,
craft.
yeah, focusing on it. And I think that's kind of what happened, was putting all that work in and then having to like go to school didn't really seem like something that I don't know. It was like, maybe I didn't really want to go to school in the first place. I was looking for a way out.
Well, like I don't know. Sometimes I think like when we approach school, it really is like it's to be educated or to be masterful in something, right? And then like you put in the work, you put in the hours
Yeah.
to something already, like a beautiful craft. Um, and then you started teaching art classes inside. Will you tell us that story? How did that
Yeah, we had trying to think. So I'm not really big on like submitting my art or like being praised. I'm really not. But I had submitted a portrait that I had done of Pablo Picasso. So I put it in the art contest, and which they have people from all the yards submit their work. And then it's like judged, you get to like walk in, you see everyone's work on the wall. You get to put your like the name that you vote for on a piece of paper and drop it in a box. It's all tallied. I'm always like, this shit's rigged. I don't want to put my art in here, even if I am the best artist or whatever. Some other inmate is gonna, rig it to where their friend wins. Oddly enough, I won. And I honestly was not like the cool guy in prison. I wasn't like the most popular, whatever. I was just kind of like under the radar and just kind of did my own thing. But yeah, I won. And so with that, the librarian, and I think one of the other artists that worked in the library was like, hey, would you be interested in like starting an art class? And I'm like, of course. And yeah, the librarian really pushed for it. So he talked to the warden, talked to the warden, he talked to the whoever was in charge of like the school, and got us starting out. I think it was like a 12, maybe not 12 weeks, probably like 8 weeks, an 8-week program where we went into the classrooms to teach. I was teaching them portraits. I was teaching them abstract. Um, I want to say mandalas, but I'm not sure. It seems like I would have probably thrown a mandala in there somewhere, but I think it was more focused on like portraits because I could teach them pretty quickly, and also like abstract, which is like you can just do a doodle. But yeah, for 8 weeks we went into the GD classrooms. It was like So it would be from like 10 to noon, and then we would take a break from like 12 to 1, I say, and then we would go back from 1 to 3. So it occupied most of my day. I mean, you got to think, those are like the times where the prison is like actively, things are happening. So it's like, yeah, my mornings and my afternoons for longer than 8 weeks, because I did it, I took it on again, which we took it on for another, I think another 8 weeks, where we were going into the classrooms and teaching people like who don't like couldn't even really write, you know what I mean? Couldn't even draw, write, and I was teaching them how to do portraits. I mean, I was teaching them how to, yeah, and so with that, then it was like, hey, do you want to start an art class for every Wednesday? Like it was like every Wednesday, would you like to start the art class like this? So this was like an art class that everyone could participate in, not just the people who were in school. And so we did. Yeah, we started the first art class at California Men's Colony in the library. I'm sure it's still going on. It has to, but I don't know. I think the people who were me, a guy named Mike Tran, um, and another person who was involved with it, they probably, this was years ago. This was 2016, 2017. So it's probably maybe who knows? Maybe someone else took it over. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it was going on the whole time I was there.
I just I want this to be an opportunity for you to just share all of your success stories. Like that's amazing, right? And like to be recognized in your craft, right? And not only just recognized, but then to like have people invite, like, hey, like you know what I mean? Like the staff was like, will you do this for other people?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they really it's funny because I feel like when you're doing, positive things, especially in prison, it's like it doesn't go unnoticed. It's like the universe will kind of guide you and like put you in places. It may not always seem like the right time or whatever, but it's like it always works itself out. And that's definitely what happened to me. Like my story with prison wasn't just like I went to prison, I worked out, I got out. It was like a lot of things. The people I met were like opportunities, and looking back on it, it just blows my mind because it's like one thing led to another, and it's pretty crazy.
so I'm taking all of these different aspects to your story. So part of our story and our friendship too is that I have a dear friend, Braden, an old Chicago friend, and he was in town, and we often get tattoos together. That's like a thing that we do. And so that morning we were going to go to the beach, and instead he's like, "Hey, my brother and I are getting a tattoo. Come meet us at this tattoo shop." So I go to Axiom, not knowing that Eric worked there. And so I'm hanging out at this tattoo shop, and they're like queer friendly, and obviously like they do amazing things for organizations, right? Just like taking like outcasts, right? And being like, no, this is a community for everyone. And you can really feel that. You can really feel that it's this heart-centered tattoo shop. And so, also being new to San Diego, I was like, this is a community that I want to be a part of. So I met Eric at the tattoo shop that day. And I was also already in conversation with him on our Prison Yoga Project Instagram. And it didn't hit me until
After,
at night
yeah,
after that we had already been talking on Instagram, and then that's who you were. Um,
that's what I'm saying. Stuff like that. That is the kind of things that like that's what happens to me in my life regularly. It's just like the divine. It's just like lines up, lines up, lines. It's so strange. I can't explain it. I don't really need to explain it, but it's crazy. Yeah, you were messaging me on Instagram, which I didn't have a face to the name Blair, so I didn't know who it was. But you were talking about the Prison Yoga Project wanted to take me out to lunch. When's my availability? And I think it was like within that same week.
it was parallel.
Yeah, I had met you, but it like when I met you, obviously you're like, hey, my name's Blair. I'm like, hey, you're like, yeah, I have a yoga. You're like, I'm doing a free yoga class on Tuesdays, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's awesome, like, and then I get a message that same night, like, oh my God, we met today. I'm Blair. I'm the Blair that's been communicating with you on Instagram, I'm like, I can't make this up. Like, this is crazy.
It totally blew my mind. And then I was telling my partner Nick about it, and he was like, "Oh my god!" And then I think it was that weekend or the next week that you guys were doing a fundraiser for
Yeah.
youth that are homeless. So I came in and I got a flash tattoo with Eric, and so I have a mandala tattoo now.
From me.
And I want to tie back in this kind of the sacred text, because we had an amazing conversation while you were doing this sacred text. Um, I would love for you to share the story of when you were reading the Bhagavad Gita to our audience.
Well, I was going through a pretty rough time. I was in the hole, I'd done some things that weren't, good or whatever, and I was in ADSEG. And I was going through like a time where it was like, do I want to keep living this life of like, crime or, whatever, drugs and hanging out with these kind of, these kind of people, or do I want to like drift and go this way? And so like I had read, or I had was given the Bhagavad Gita oddly enough from like a therapist at the prison, because when you're in ADSEG, they have a therapist, hey, would you like to come and just talk or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Any chance to get out of the cell, you're going to be like, yeah, of course. And so they shackle you, and you go to the therapist, you're in shackles, and you know, we're talking, whatever. And whenever it was time to go back, she's like, would you like a book? I'm like, of course. What's that one right there? And so, I mean, in my mind, it's weird because that's all the only book I seen. And, looking back on it, obviously there were probably tons of books, but I was like, what's that one? It just seemed different. It's like you see words that you're like, what is that? Bhagavad Gita. Like that seems interesting to me. I don't want to read all this other stuff about, you know, psychology or anything. I want that. What's that one? And so, yeah, I had, was given the book by a therapist, and I had read it in the whole, not read the whole thing in the whole, but like it was like the opening, that where Arjuna's in the battlefield. He's not sure what to do. Krishna's talking to him, and it's just about how it was a battle. And it just kind of sunk in with me. It was like, okay, there's something obviously going on, and it's time to turn away from the old ways. And yeah, that just reading that story is kind of what motivated me. And obviously I was, reading the Bible as well, and the story of Daniel in the lion's den um, was another one. It was like, okay, so this is obviously just a story, a metaphor, but it was kind of what I was going through. It's like, okay, it's gonna be all right. You're gonna go through some shit, but you're gonna be fine. And yeah, I'm not sure about how much detail I want to go in about like the things I was going through at that time, but yeah, it was pretty monumental.
And yeah, and you definitely share details, right? But just that you were at like a fork in the road, right? And
Oh yeah.
also, like, so I also reread the Gita recently, and Arjuna's the best warrior in the world, and he is on his knees crying, literally begging to God, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? God, the universe, spirit, whatever the language is that you want to use, right? Like, so literally, yeah, the best warrior is on his
And
knees.
and
Just
Krishna is telling him like, no, you have to fight. You have to keep going. Basically, like
yeah.
no matter what, I'm telling you what to do. Basically, do it. No matter if you don't want to do it, just do it. Like, and I think it's obviously in a good. It's the context is good, not even though the story isn't where he has to like fight his family and stuff, but
yeah, heartbreaking, but like, yeah, that like that you will prevail, and these are all the ways that you can practice too, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you had kind of mentioned when you got your hands on James's book that teaches yoga. Did you have a meditation practice before that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. So what I would
I
love.
think
Yeah.
once again, maybe, but not as, looking back, I think I thought I was, because like I had started reading, there's another book, We're All Doing Time by Bo Lazoff.
Mm.
And in that book, he also goes over meditation stuff. And so it was like, I think I was reading that at the same time. And so I was probably trying to, you know, focus on my breath. But once again, I had no guidance. And you're just like, no, I don't think I'm, when you're not trained to, meditate, it's very, very difficult because you think you're not doing it right, which when obviously if your mind's racing and you're drifting back to your breath, you're meditating fine. But I would probably meditate for a couple minutes and just be like, I'm not good at this, like I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I definitely was trying it.
And then was there a book you encountered, or was there a practice that supported your practice?
I think I like the one of the pranayama exercises that were, the nostril breathing.
Mm.
Honestly can't remember the Sanskrit name for it. But yeah, that was one of my pretty much my best, because it was pretty easy, easier than just focusing on your breath. You know what I mean? Trying to just, yeah, being able to have something that's like, okay, breathe in, hold, breathe out through the right, breathe in, breathe out. Like that's a little bit easier than just focus on your breath. And like when your thoughts are drifting, just like come back, that's hard. That's hard to do.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Like having like a little tighter of a container,
Yeah.
some instruction.
It's more like, yeah, it's more of like an exercise than just, yeah, meditation, like the typical, meditation. So
Yeah, and even like doing alternate nostril breathing and then sitting. You're like, okay, like you can do some stuff kind of just to clear the mind and then sit. And I agree with you, right? When you first start practicing, you're like, I'm definitely doing this wrong because my mind is so loud.
yeah. But
And
even after years of doing meditation, I had learned that no, that's normal.
yeah,
Like you can be meditating for 30 minutes and maybe in that time you've only went back to the breath once because you didn't even realize your mind took you on a journey, and it took you 20 minutes to go, wait a second, back on the breath, and you keep trying that. But yeah, it's intense.
and I also want to hear, what was it like being in your first yoga class, right? Okay, so you're like, you had study and you read texts, and then what was it like when you actually were in class and you were when you saw someone doing yoga?
In class, I can't even remember. I mean, I remember obviously it was the Prison Yoga Project when they came in and I signed up. Luckily, I got in I got in that first little wave because then there became like a waiting list. It seemed like years, but um, it was, I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome seeing people, coming in and actual yoga teachers other than just the prisoners, which, I have a really good friend who had we kind of did yoga together. Ben Ballard, he's like one of my really good friends. He's out now, but it was awesome. I mean, yeah, it's because then once you've done this, like it's so strange thinking that in prison you're so cut off, and it's like you're learning how to do something without any idea if you're doing it right. But then when you have that like confirmation, seeing someone do it, like going to a yoga studio, it's like this same thing. It's like, oh wow, I am actually doing it right, and I'm actually, you know, pretty good at this. So it's like do crow. Oh wow, I could do that, or we're gonna be doing this, and it's awesome.
Oh, I love hearing that, right? That it actually was it was a confidence boost for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you're like, okay, like you're among community, right? It wasn't,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, even in prison, when you have like a thing like a yoga class, um, unfortunately, a lot of people sign up because it's like, oh, there's women there. I want to go because there's women. But it's like, irregardless of why they're going, something is bringing them there and something is planting that seed. And to like have a place where I think there were about 20 people in the class, which I was able to attend twice a week, because I was like, I was the person who I'd go down there early, I'd pull out all the mats and I would like clean them, I would set them in the circle. Um, excuse me, but yeah, it's nice to have that community of people that who are on a path, that's similar. And probably out of those 20, I would say at least 16 were actively spiritual, because a lot of them were my close friends that I'd seen on the yard. And yeah, it's good. It's not really stuff like that's not really promoted in prison. You're going to yoga, like, okay, like, and yeah, it's awesome. It's very transformative.
I love hearing how many people were already in some kind of in that group too. That's amazing.
Yeah, and even if they weren't like doing, hatha yoga, they were, some of them were Muslim, some of them were Christian, some of them, which is crazy to me because, certain religions that, it's not, yoga is not really viewed as part of their practice. And so the fact that they were able to, you know, break out of that and try something, that kind of went against their belief system or whatever it's pretty awesome.
Wow. And so, okay, so I just, I really love your story, and I'm so happy that we get to to share it with our audience here today too. Um, I think I want to ask one more kind of theme, and then I want to open it up to our audience. But I know that you, did you find Buddhism when you were in prison as well?
Yeah. So that's kind of like what I resonated with was Buddhism. Um, I don't remember. I think there was like a Buddhist meditation led by an outside volunteer that would come in, D Hong. He would come in on Wednesday night and it would be like, a meditation, and we would open up with like a discussion and stuff like that. And that's kind of, once again, I was like in a time of like trouble. I was actually, it's called a thing called C status, where you're basically in your cell 23 hours a day, but you get to come out to the yard for like 1 hour, or like you have a limited time out on the yard with everyone else in the prison. So it's like very strange. You're able to like go hang out with your friends, but only during this time, and the rest of the time you're locked down. It's like very limited. And so I was like, yeah, I want to get out of my cell, because you're able to come out in the morning and then you're in your cell all night, for the rest of the afternoon. And so once again, it's like, how can I manipulate the system and get out of here? Oh, Buddhist meetings on Wednesday night. I'm going to go to that. I don't care what Buddhism is. I just want to get out of my cell. And so, yeah, I was going to the Buddhist meditation classes just to kind of like escape. And it was good. It like actually helped. But yeah. And then obviously I kept going after that. But yeah, that's kind of how I was introduced to it. And then getting the literature, they'd had like this little cabinet, all the books, the Four Noble Truths. Or actually um there was a like a course that was given by D Hong on the Four Noble Truths. And so, I kind of was working on that. But yeah, being exposed to that kind of literature. It's really not common, in prisons. Buddhism, Eastern philosophy, stuff like that is not really as common as you would think. I mean, it's really Christianity and Muslim, like those are the dominant religions. And so to find something that, like Buddhism was weird. It's like there's this one bookshelf and it's only unlocked on Wednesday. So you have to go there to get that book, the books you want to read. And so I would go down there and read, Dalai Lama, stuff like that. Thich Nhat Hanh, like reading books that were different. It's like, it's awesome. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. It's just weird looking back on this. It's like, I don't talk about this stuff very much, but like looking back on it, it's just like, it's just crazy. It's like, there's this shelf of books. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and like also it sounded like it sounds like a kind of like again like ramped up your commitment, right? You're like, okay, like it's only open on Wednesday, so I need to finish this book by next Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
So, like it shifts your commitment and discipline in a different way. um
Yeah.
which
Especially I was on C status for 6 months.
wow.
So it's, I was, and C status is like this row, and it's weird. It's like you're in the hole, but you're not. You don't get calls, you don't get any, like you can't get visits, you can't do anything normal, but you have the ability to go out for this one, like this one part of the day. But yeah, it was for 6 months. And so for those 6 months, and I think you're only really allowed to grab, they tell you only get one book, like don't get too many books. And obviously I'm the guy that's like, I want this one, this one, this one, this one, because I'm actually going to read them, and so I'm like, but yeah, it's funny.
So just really quick technically, so you're saying C status, you get yard time, and then is it when you're in the hole, it's you don't get anything?
Well, you don't get yard in the hole. You get yard, but not with, everyone. Um, which is, I understand, but yeah, C status, that's kind of the difference between C status, which is weird because you're like on C status. And so it's very strange. You get to see everything out of your cell. The yard is going on, and there were like, I'd seen riots from my door, um, on C status. Someone got stabbed on the tier that I was living on Christmas. I watched, a prison, riot. The whole tier was fighting. People were getting stabbed. It's just like, so that is kind of like the difference is you still get to see the world going on, which in the hole, it's like, you don't see anything. You're talking to people under, through the crack in the door. You're fishing, you're making little like things to where you can send them all the way, 100 feet, 200 feet, I don't know, down the tier to cells way down the tier. You're able to like fish and pass books and pass food, and but yeah, so that's kind of the difference.
Did it, I don't know, I feel like maybe one of both ways, right? Like seeing, the outside like the world that you do have, right? Like you don't really get to participate in it, but you get to watch it. What did that feel like?
It sucked. But it's kind of what, for me, it's what pushed me to become better, to like change. Yeah, it was a real hard time. I mean, it's because you're not able to make phone calls, and that's, I had a good support system while I was in. Fortunately, my mother and my sisters, I was able to, talk to them regularly. But with that, you're not able to call them. You're not able to get, I couldn't go to store. I couldn't get packages. I couldn't get the things that I were used to getting. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then to be able to see, like, obviously you can be like, hey, if you run out of coffee or you run out of, yeah, you can't even have electronics. You can't have, yeah. So that's like the other thing. It's like you're in a, it's like it's basically you're in ADSEG.
Mm-hmm.
No radio. So yeah, but what's good about all that, especially for me, was that something that created something in me. It shook something up. It was like, okay, I can't have music. I can't have, I don't even know if I was doing art, at that time. It's like I was so depressed. It's like I was going through so much that it was just like books and like, you know, meditation. I mean, honestly, it's like that's all I had.
Thank you for sharing that.
Prob-
um, and I think we can transition. I'm seeing some questions pop in too, so we can pop into some question and answer. I've got one in the chat, but just again, anyone that might have joined late, there's a Q&A box on the bottom of the Zoom, and you can put your questions into there. So we have a question in the chat. Can I ask, what felt supportive to you from the instructor other than guiding through the poses and breath work? I would appreciate hearing whether there were messages or cues that felt supportive and encouraging on the mat, even when you felt mentally and physically challenged on the mat. So maybe what this question kind of what I'm hearing is like, what was supportive to having an instructor versus just having the book? Like what felt important when you had a yoga instructor?
well, you're able to see, I mean, you're able to actually see someone who knows what they're doing show you how to do it. So then it can like really further your practice. Because when you're just looking at a book, I mean, you're still practicing yoga, but if you're not doing it correctly, it may not be as beneficial, you know? So I think, yeah, having an instructor really makes it, it just kind of gets you there quicker. You know, it's like, yeah, you can learn how to do something. Like I can learn how to draw on my own, but it may take me years. But if I take a class on how to draw, I might learn things within that, you know, that semester that are just going to like set me closer. So that's, yeah, it's kind of, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, was there any kind of specific moment or movement that clicked for you that was like to share, or like
What do
for
you, what, like,
for like any instructors or like yoga facilitators like on the call, like was there any moment for you like in any of the classes that something like clicked, or like was there anything anyone said that was particularly helpful?
I don't really honestly remember
Yeah.
if, you know, if there was a moment. I think by the time the class came, like by the time the prison yoga project came, I was already 5 years into, you know, doing yoga. So it's
Oh,
like, yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously I was doing yoga with, there were a couple people who were seasoned. They had been to San Quentin. They, you know, they had been doing yoga for many, many years. And so, you know, I was able to learn a little bit. You know, one of the guys, Ben Ballard, who's in the book Prison Yoga Project, like he's one of the illustrators in the book.
mm,
Um, but yeah, so yeah, by that time, I don't think it wasn't, I wasn't introduced to yoga per se through the Prison Yoga Projects, the class. So I don't, you know, necessarily think I remember. Yeah, I don't really remember it being like,
anything specific?
no.
But I mean, you were practicing for 5 years already, and I like all these little sideways that it was like coming into your life.
I know is I can't. It's like you can't looking like, yeah, looking back on it, it blows me away because you don't know that all these things are like leading you to something. You know, you're in prison. You think, yeah, whatever, none of this shit matters. Like everything sucks. You know, I just want to go home. But in those moments, you're like able to get little nuggets and like find little truths and like, you know, and then looking back, yeah, I've been out a year. I mean, it's probably been what, 3 years, 2 years since the prison yoga project, since I was in the prison yoga project, like yeah, the yoga class, because I think we were on locked. I mean, basically COVID. So COVID happened. That's what shut the class down. So yeah, it's been years since then, but yeah, it blows me away. And I don't talk about this stuff much. Like you know, obviously I'm out here. I kind of keep prison talk and stuff like that out of the conversation because I don't really think, you know, is not ready to hear you know, my story about what I've been through. So I just kind of keep it to myself. But it's talking about it kind of, yeah, it brings back memories. It's crazy.
Hopefully, it's bringing back good ones, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of bad things that happened, but there were so many good things, you know, because even by the time, you know, I started like working, you know, volunteering for the prison yoga project, I was already years, you know, into change, you know, because 2016, I think, yeah, 2014, 2015, 2016, those were like the years where I was really a knucklehead. I was stubborn. I was mad at life. I was mad at God. I was mad at everyone. But yeah, 2018. I think I started Cuesta College in 2018, 2019, at 20, a few years. Yeah, it's already years into it. I was already, taking classes. I was almost, yeah, already almost graduating Cuesta.
That's another thing that I want to bring up for us to celebrate. You got 2 associate degrees when you were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to say two because it's like I got one and I had a couple extra classes for the other one. It's like it's not like I was actively trying to get two different. It's like once you get the associates, was humanities or whatever. It's like that's just
Well, I mean, like, that's a lot of hard work. It's like it's a lot of effort, and you showed up for it.
yeah. It definitely was a lot of effort. It's not very easy in there. Very hard to go to school in prison. That there's really very very tough. Imagine trying to like study for a midterm with riots and just chaos and fighting you know and not get wrapped up in all that and trying to like focus on it's freaking hard. It was tough. And then when I got moved into a dorm, I was in a dorm for the last 2 years that I was in. Even harder. Like that was really like I would have to basically study lights out to like 2 in the morning. So I would like because there was just no way I could read in a dorm with just everything going on. So it was like, yeah, it was very, very tough. I would write my papers at like midnight, stay up all night. I would go into the TV room and pull up the benches and make them into a table and like set I had a drawing board. I would set that down and I'd put books with a light and just like write my paper, or like, yeah, it's very tough.
Like a level of commitment that I think a lot of people, even on the outside, wouldn't make.
I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. I think that's kind of a normal thing for college student.
Yeah.
I would like to think, let me put this off until it's due tomorrow. I have to do it right now. I mean, I hear a lot of people, since they're like, that's what I did. I'm like, wow, so this was normal. You stayed up in the library all night, like writing your paper. So it's like,
Yeah.
but I think it's definitely a challenge. It's very challenging. But I don't want to think that like being in prison I was special or like,
Mm.
people out here, we all have problems. There's things. It's kind of the same thing. It's just kind of intensified in there a little bit, because you're having to, but it's the same out here. A college student loses their mother or something. And it's like they still have to go to school. They still have to figure out how to get this paper done or take this turn, take this test or whatever. Going through something that's challenging. So it's like it's the same thing, and it's not really any.
We got a couple more questions too, and I want to just be aware of our time together. Okay. Is there anything you would caution yoga facilitators in prison against doing or saying during the course of the class? Something that we might not have considered if we've never been incarcerated before.
Is there any?
Like,
Where are you seeing?
Oh yeah, okay.
I
So,
can't see it.
so I just moved it to the answered section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, like, is there anything that you would caution a facilitator? Anything to like not say in class?
I don't think so. Not that I can really think of. I think it's pretty. I think. I mean, at least from my perspective, it's. I mean, the classes were amazing. It's probably like the best part of my week was going to the yoga. So I mean, yeah, it's. I don't really think that I've ever encountered anything, in those classes that I felt shouldn't be done.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
Uh, have you thought about going back in and teaching inside?
no. I mean, part of me wants to be of service, which I am. I still communicate with a lot of people inside. I help them out. I still send them pictures every day. Not every day, but at least a few times a week. I'm still, I still take their phone calls. I haven't forgot about them. And I feel like that's kind of, with especially everything that I have going on, I don't really feel like I have room in my life to take that on. But you've introduced me to Chris, who, is connected with Rikers Island in New York.
Oh, have you guys been talking?
Well, yeah, we had a Zoom meeting,
Awesome.
and I had sent him some of my music because I make music too. I also make, I make beats. Um, and he helps. I guess he has like, there's like a program at Rikers where they can have music from the streets, which is awesome. So it's like they can listen to beat, like there's rappers and stuff who make like listen to beats, and you know hopefully I'll get some of my beats sent into them, like to those guys. But
Great. Yeah. And so,
that's kind of the service that, like, the extent of what I can give right now.
well, and I think you're of service to people in your community.
Yeah,
Like that, that's also how you're
but
showing.
I'm very traumatized by prison, and I don't really want to open that. I don't. Very hard. It's very hard. I know from personal experience that if someone wants to change or be better or do better, it's on them. It's like it's on you to take that. It's like, and yeah, it's hard. It's a tough one going back in. Maybe someday.
And then we'll have you back on too. And
Maybe if it's like teaching tattooing or something, and like I mean, you never know. Yeah. Maybe they'll have a tattoo class and I can come in. I mean, I definitely like sharing my story and sharing my success, but that I feel like that's a lot of dedication to do something. It's a lot of energy that it requires. It's very tough.
yeah. We have another question. What advice would you give someone who is currently struggling and on C status?
I would just, yeah, I think use that time to just like benefit yourself. If you're in a situation where on C status, yeah, try to make positive. I would just say try to make positive changes. Use that time to read, use that time to draw, use that time to pray, meditate,
Mm.
exercise, stuff that is gonna, benefit you. Because a lot of the time what happens is people are on C status and they're just like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, oh well, they'll go out on the yard and then they'll be drinking or they'll be fighting. But yeah, I would just say use that time to focus on, being better.
Another question. I think it's more of a statement, but I'm gonna see if they want to type in an actual question with it as well. Participant asks, I'd love to work on normalizing prison talk and sharing these experiences for anyone with family members who are incarcerated. My sister just got sentenced to 24 months, and as a yoga facilitator, I feel like I have so much more to learn now. Do you have
Yeah,
any?
I did. I feel like normalizing, prison should should definitely, happen. I mean, that's the thing. It's like even me, I don't even think I haven't really shared the fact that I've been to prison with a lot of people out here. I mean, there's obviously my coworkers, but even like my clients, I don't just tell them like, yeah, I was in prison. It's like, because it's not normal. It's like, I don't want to scare people. And I think there should be, I mean, I think, yeah, it shouldn't be so frowned upon. It's like, yeah, I was in prison, but I also had to turn my life around. I don't want it to be, yeah, it should, yeah, we should definitely normalize it. Make it easier for me. Or just anyone. I mean, because that's the problem, is that you're in prison, you've done this thing, and then say you do change, say you've made a lot of progress, and then you get out and you're not greeted with open arms. It's like, even when I had reached out to all those tattoo shops. It's like, I wasn't greeted with open arms, even in the tattooing world, which is like tough guy, you know. And so it's like, it should be, there should be, which there are programs, there are, you know, obviously there's help. I'm not trying to say there isn't, but it should be more, you know, less judged. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you get out and you're like feeling like you're being judged. You know, I would meet people and I'd be like, yeah, you know, I just got out of prison. It's like, just scares people away. You know, when you meet a girl and you're like, yeah, just want to be honest with you and tell you that I just got out of prison. It's like, hi, you still there? You know, like, oh, what happened? So it's like, yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, we people in this room, right, don't agree with the system that we currently
yeah, of course.
and then but then maybe people that aren't in this room right now specifically, like whether they are aware of it or not, but like they agree to the system, one, because they're not doing anything about it, but like, okay, so a jury of your peers sentenced you this long, and then you should be free when you get out, right? Like that, like if we're talking about the exchange, right, like you did your exchange, so why are you still being punished
Yeah.
when you get out?
And that's the thing too. It's like, you even do your time. So say you're sentenced to eight, like I was sentenced 8 years, 10 months, right? I was sentenced to 9 years at 85%. And so it's like, once I do that time, then I'm still required to do an extra 3 on paper. So
Mm.
that part isn't discussed in court. It's like, so you actually sentence me to 11 years because, you know, I've done my physical time. And then they go, oh, by the way, you're getting out, but you're going to be on parole. Like, we have to still make sure you're going to be okay. It's like, but then why not let me out in 5 years and let me, you know, finish that time in 3? But that's not what happened. So it's like, yeah,
And then it
it's,
has to keep following you, right?
yeah, it has to follow you. It's like, oh, and then your parole officer's going to show up at your job. He's going to come knocking on your door, which is sucks. It's like, I'm out here doing the right thing. I'm trying to like live a good life. And then I have a guy showing up in a freaking, you know, bulletproof vest knocking on my door. My neighbors are probably like, the fuck is this guy do? Like, who is this? Like, who lives next to me? And then they're fucking scared to, you know, talk to me. It's like, yeah, it's not happy.
And like someone, right, just like coming and like almost like enforcing power, rather than
Yeah,
assuming.
because it's not like, it's like if you were my parole officer, it would be awesome, you know, because you'd be like, hey, how you doing? You know, things. But it's not. It's always these like ex-prison guards. You know, they didn't want to work in the prison because it's so dangerous. So they come out here and they just push people around. It's crazy. It's like, I mean, fortunately, I had, you know, parole officers that didn't really give me a hard time. You know, they were just like, hey, it's good to see you're doing everything. But still, it's still very difficult to like let someone into your space and they're just like, what are you doing? You know, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, dude, everything's fine. Like, you're being aggressive right now. We're just hanging out.
Mhm. Well, I hear that we have, trauma informed facilitation to offer parole officers as well. Like we're trying to get correction officers in the fold, right? Like we're really trying to create more of a holistic environment, right? Because when you were even saying, right, like a lot of people look at you and you're like, oh, like you do yoga, right? Like what would it look like if that was open and available to everyone,
Yeah.
community? Yeah. I think we have one or two more questions, and I just keep wanting to be aware of time. And then, oh, I love this one. Have you thought about writing a book yourself?
Yeah. I actually started writing a book when I was in prison. I still have it. Like, I still have this, but yeah, it was, I mean, I journaled the whole time. I have 6 years of journals. Like, you want to read
Wow.
them the whole time. Yeah. When I got out of the hole, well, no, actually I started journaling before that. Yeah. And so for that whole, every, you know, C status and the whole and everything, I got journals that talk about my experiences. And I have thought about, you know, maybe publishing them as is, just like, but then again, it's like, I don't know. It's, as of right now, I'm kind of focused on tattooing. And yeah, I actually started writing an autobiography. I think I wrote like 15 pages on a typewriter.
Maybe this is
Just
a
hard to do.
yeah, maybe this is a seed. Maybe yeah, maybe tomorrow you'll wake up and go back to it.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I'm married to a writer, so she could edit it.
What a perfect duo.
Professional writer, so it's like she helps me with everything too. Need help with the bio, she wrote it.
It was perfect. Oh my god! And then the photo I shared of you on Instagram too. That made my heart burst when I saw that photo. I love seeing you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If we don't have any more questions from our community, you're welcome to kind of drop that in. But yeah, I want to leave the last statement to you. Like, if there's anything that we didn't talk about today, or if there's anything specific you want to share with our audience, or anything about your story, it's all
I
you.
think we covered it.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm just very appreciative of the Prison Yoga Project. I mean, you guys going into a prison, it's not easy. And so I'm very appreciative. I know that a lot of guys and women too, obviously, but where I was, like, people were very appreciative. It's like it sucked when we would be on our way to yoga and there would be like something happen, and we wouldn't be able to make it because all inmates report to your cell, like, we're on lockdown. It's just like, wow, I was about to go do something that was like the highlight of my week. And so, yeah, we appreciate that. Like, we definitely appreciated it. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, all the volunteers, Blair. It's amazing. I mean, it is. I mean, I can't, like I said, I don't want to go back in there, but the fact that you guys, do, it's awesome. Because it helps people. It's definitely helping people change. And it's pretty awesome that 20, you can do yoga in prison. I mean, it's not normalized. So it's very, you're looked down upon. But
Well, we
it's
love you.
awesome.
We think that your lived experience is so valuable to our community, and you're such an important part of our community too. And just to say a couple more things too, Eric Hare Tattoo, go follow him on Instagram. Come to San Diego and get some of his art on your body. It's awesome. And he's going to be a guru tattoo soon too. So these are kind of some ways that you can support our community member, Eric. Yeah, thank you so much for making the time to be with us here today.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
come
all
back in.
good.
Come back in anytime.
Okay, great. Yeah, maybe okay, so like the next time if you choose to go back in and when you get this book, we'll have your book party.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. Please give your partner our love as well. Thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for our community for showing up and witnessing his amazing story.